All right, guys, angle. The angle of departure, both vertically and horizontally, is difficult to calculate or to predict due to the many variables involved, not the least of which is the deformation of the bullet caused by its impact with the surfaces that it strikes. Probability of a ricochet is highest from surfaces approximately parallel to the axis of the bullet movement, and grazing ricochets typically depart the surface at a smaller angle than the angle of incidence or approach. All right, so listen, guys, what that means is, for example, if you're in a building and you shoot along the wall and you happen to strike the wall, it's going to deflect off of it. Okay, it's going to ricochet. But here's the problem with all that: when you shoot a rock, a car, glass, a wall, any of those things, you need to anticipate, and I say anticipate loosely, okay, where that bullet's going to go. All right. And this all goes back to, the fundamentals. Make sure you know your target. Make sure you know what's behind your target. All of those sorts of things. Now, this being said, ricochets are really, really tricky. I mean, they really are. Now, being in a gunfight, a combat gunfight, shit's going on so fast and so much that a lot of times you can't think. Your brain won't allow you to think that far ahead. Okay, this is another reason why those guys train. That way they can be more precise with their rounds instead of spray and praise. Okay. And I say spray and praise because most of the spray and praise that happen, there's a lot of ricochet. They're just shooting random shit. They don't give a damn. They're just shooting random shit. Probability of penetration. Probability of bullet penetration increases as the axis of the bullet movement becomes perpendicular to the target surface, but penetration may create a depression or a crater within which the bullet may ricochet more than once, possibly following the arc of the crater floor to depart the crater at a greater angle from the original surface than the angle of incidence. In extreme case, a strong cohesive bullet striking nearly perpendicular elastic surface may ricochet directly back at the shooter. This situation sometimes observed when hardened armor piercing bullet cores fail to completely penetrate steel plate. The United States Army noticed an increased ricochet range after adopting the M855A1 green bullet with a larger steel core than the M855 bullet it replaced. Buckshot and subsonic bullets may be similarly reflected from rubber vehicle tires. So in short, don't shoot those two rounds at a tire. Not all ricochets are accidental. Some bullets are fired to intentionally ricochet, just as in ricochets of small ball games like basketball and pool. Bullet traps at indoor shooting ranges are often include durable steel plates to deflect bullets downward into a material intended to stop and capture the bullets. Cannonballs were often fired to strike the ground or water in front of the target in anticipation of ricochets, which would keep the projectile at an effective distance above the ground or water surface through massed troops or ships. Now, there's a difference. We're not living back in the 1800s, so we don't have to do that anymore. Now, today, it is more of being precise. Now, I'm not saying perfect, but precise against, again, train. Train the muscle movements. That way, when you bring your firearm up, it meets your eyes. Train muscle movements of your trigger discipline, your trigger pull. All of those things have a big variance in how your firearm is effectively shot and precisely hitting its target. Okay, so again, train, 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 train. The behavior of iron cannonballs documented during the era of muzzle-loaded cannon may be a useful approximation for a BB gun or steel pellets fired from a shotgun, but inelastic collisions between various shapes and materials of high velocity bullets, the objects they may strike, make bullet ricochets less predictable than the intuitive symmetry of low velocity game spheres. The problem with unintentional ricochets is the potential damage caused to objects outside the intended path of a bullet. A responsible shooter anticipates potential bullet interactions with a cone of space around the aim point. Now, that's what I just said. I mean, literally, it's what I just said. A responsible shooter anticipates the potential bullet interactions within a cone of space around the aim point. So, you see what I'm saying? You really, really need to train. You really, really, really need to be precise. You really, really, really need to do all of those things. And there's a lot of things that go into shooting. Okay, there's a lot. You can find people on YouTube. You can train yourself. You can experience some of these things yourself. But the more you do it, the more you learn. Okay. Hence the idea of experience is the best teacher. Okay. The shooter is at the apex of the cone. The cone is a symmetrical around the intended bullet path. The angle of that cone may initially be defined by the accuracy of the firearm and the skill of the shooter. Exactly what I just said. They're just putting it in other words. But any ricochet potential within the cone becomes apex of a ricochet cone with a broader angle. The ground surface is a frequent source of ricochets. A bullet may be deflected more than once before it comes to rest. Damage potential of ricochets, like bullets, is proportional to the mass of the bullet fragment and the square of its velocity. Ricochet velocity is always lower than collision velocity, but may be close to a collision velocity for smaller angles of deflection. Ricochet mass may be similarly close to the original bullet mass for full metal jacket bullets or green bullets, replacing soft lead with solid copper or steel core. Frangible bullets or lead core varmint hunting bullets are more susceptible to collision damage and produce smaller ricochet fragments. Lower initial mass gives small fragment ricochets less damage potential, and the distance of travel is reduced by more rapid loss of velocity from air resistance. Reducing ricochet range is one of the reasons the newer .17 HMR round with its frangible bullet has gained popularity against the older non-fragmenting .22 WMR. Ricochets can be lethal. A notable death caused by a ricochet was the hostage Katrina Dawson during the Linden Cafe siege in December 2014, killed by a ricochet from police bullet when tactical officers stormed the building. Now, I don't know that case. This is the first time I've heard of it, so I don't know. You guys are more than willing to look that up. Go look it up. The point of it is this: you've got to pay attention to what you're doing, and you need to train. End of story. Pay attention, train, anticipate. Okay, don't anticipate trigger pull. Don't anticipate the recoil. Don't whether it's a handgun or a rifle. Those are not the anticipations. What I'm talking about is the anticipation as you fire the bullet. Is it got enough power to reach its target, or is it going to bounce off the ground a couple of times and then hit something else other than the intended target? There's a lot of things you got to keep up with. There's a lot of things you got to anticipate. Thank you, guys.